Why your mind won't stop creating problems. In a letter to his dear friend Lucilius, Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "There are more things, Lucilius, likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Right now, as you're watching this, your mind might be spinning stories about tomorrow's meeting, next month's bills, or that conversation you need to have. Maybe you're replaying yesterday's mistakes or rehearsing future disasters that haven't even happened yet. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Millions of us are trapped in this exhausting cycle of mental suffering, creating problems that don't exist and fighting battles that may never come. But here's what's fascinating. Over 2,000 years ago, a Roman philosopher discovered exactly why we do this to ourselves and, more importantly, how to stop it permanently. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest Stoic thinkers, didn't just theorize about worry from an ivory tower. He lived through exile, political intrigue, and constant threats to his life. Yet he found a way to maintain such profound peace of mind that emperors sought his counsel, and his letters on conquering worry are still changing lives today. What Seneca understood, and what modern psychology is only now catching up to, is that chronic worry isn't caused by our circumstances. It's caused by something far more surprising and far more fixable. The problem isn't your job, your relationships, or even that uncertain future you keep obsessing over. The problem is a specific mental habit that you've likely been practicing without even realizing it. Think about it. How much of your stress comes from actual, present moment problems versus the stories your mind tells about what might happen? Seneca observed this same pattern in ancient Rome, watching successful merchants lose sleep over imaginary financial ruin. Healthy people torment themselves with fears of illness, and happy relationships poisoned by anxieties about future betrayals that never materialized. The good news? Seneca didn't just diagnose the problem. Through his correspondence with Lucilius and his own daily practice, he developed a complete system for conquering worry that's so effective, it helped him maintain serenity even while serving under the volatile Emperor Nero. This wasn't positive thinking or denial. It was a practical, philosophical approach based on clear reasoning and proven techniques. In this video, you'll discover Seneca's 7 powerful strategies for eliminating worry at its source. You'll learn why your mind manufactures stress, how worrying is literally making you sick, and most importantly, the specific daily practices that can free you from anxiety's grip forever. These aren't abstract theories but practical tools you can start using immediately, whether you're dealing with work stress, relationship anxiety, or that general sense of unease that follows you everywhere. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Seneca could face exile with equanimity, why Marcus Aurelius turned to these same principles while ruling an empire, and how you can apply this ancient wisdom to modern life. Let's begin with the shocking truth about where your worry really comes from. 1. The shocking truth about where your stress really comes from. When we think about stress, we often attribute it to external factors, a demanding job, a difficult relationship, or financial instability. However, Seneca and other Stoic philosophers reveal a different truth. Much of our stress originates not from the world around us, but from our own minds. As Seneca pointed out, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. This profound insight challenges us to examine the mental habits that contribute to our suffering. At the heart of this issue is the tendency of our minds to create problems that don't exist. Imagine you have an important presentation coming up at work. Instead of focusing on preparing your content, your mind spirals into a whirlwind of what-if scenarios. What if I forget my lines? What if my boss disapproves? What if my colleagues laugh at me? In this scenario, the real challenge, the presentation itself, becomes obscured by a fog of imaginary fears. This mental habit of exaggerating potential threats is a common pitfall. Seneca observed that we often twist into the worst constructions some word of doubtful meaning, magnifying our worries to the point where they overshadow reality. The key takeaway here is that many of the fears we experience are not grounded in actual events but are projections of our imagination. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius echoed this sentiment in his Meditations, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is a powerful reminder that the first step in conquering worry is recognizing that we have control over our thoughts. We can choose to focus on the present moment and the facts at hand rather than the exaggerated fears that our minds concoct. To illustrate this point, consider the example of preparing for an exam. Students often experience paralyzing anxiety in the weeks leading up to the test, worrying about failing, disappointing their parents, or jeopardizing their future. In reality, the exam is merely a measure of knowledge at a specific point in time. By shifting the focus from potential failure to the preparation process, students can reduce their anxiety significantly. They can remind themselves that they have succeeded in learning the material and that their worth is not tied to a single test score. Another common source of stress is our tendency to dwell on the past. We replay mistakes in our minds, fixating on what we could have done differently. Seneca cautions against this when he writes, "Don't let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." This quote highlights the futility of worrying about past actions. The Stoics teach us that we cannot change the past, but we can control how we respond to it. By focusing on the present and accepting past failures as opportunities for growth, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress. Moreover, the Stoics encourage us to examine our judgments about situations. For instance, you might feel stressed about a colleague's criticism. Instead of viewing it as a personal attack, consider it an opportunity for feedback and improvement. As Epictetus wisely stated, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. By reframing our interpretations of events, we can reduce the emotional weight they carry. Social pressures also contribute significantly to our stress levels. In a world filled with social media, we are bombarded with images of others' seemingly perfect lives. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy and anxiety about our own circumstances. Seneca warned against allowing external opinions to dictate our self-worth, urging us to trust in yourself and take counsel with your own feelings. The Stoic practice of self-reliance means evaluating our lives based on our values rather than the unrealistic standards set by others. To put this into practice, consider the act of scrolling through social media. Instead of feeling envious of a friend's vacation photos or their new car, remind yourself that everyone has their struggles hidden behind the perfect snapshots. Focus on your own journey, setting personal goals based on what truly matters to you rather than what society dictates. Another key aspect of Stoic thought is the acceptance of uncertainty. The Stoics understood that life is inherently unpredictable and that worrying about potential disasters is futile. As Seneca wisely stated, fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant. By embracing the uncertainty of life, we can reduce our anxiety about the future. Instead of getting caught up in what-if scenarios, we can adopt a mindset that welcomes whatever comes our way. This doesn't mean ignoring potential risks, rather, it involves preparing ourselves mentally and emotionally for the unexpected. Consider this: when faced with an unexpected change, such as a job loss or a sudden illness, many people experience a flood of anxiety. However, by applying Stoic principles, we can approach these situations with resilience. We can ask ourselves what we can control in this moment and how we can adapt to the new reality. This shift in perspective turns fear into opportunity and empowers us to act rather than react. Finally, it's essential to remember that stress is not just a mental phenomenon, it has real physical effects on our bodies. Chronic worry can lead to sleep disturbances, weakened immune response, and even heart disease. Recognizing the connection between our thoughts and physical health is crucial. Seneca emphasized the importance of a tranquil mind for overall well-being when he said, "A good character, like a good tree, is not to be judged by its bark. It is the hidden roots that nourish it." By nurturing our minds with Stoic wisdom, we can cultivate emotional resilience that positively impacts our physical health. In summary, the shocking truth about stress is that much of it is self-inflicted. Our minds have the power to create unnecessary anxiety through exaggerated fears, dwelling on the past, and succumbing to social pressures. By applying Stoic principles, focusing on the present, reframing our interpretations, and embracing uncertainty, we can conquer worry forever. As we continue this journey through Seneca's teachings, we will explore practical strategies to further eliminate stress from our lives. The next section will reveal why worrying is literally making you sick and how to break this harmful cycle. 2. Why worrying is literally making you sick, Seneca's warning. Seneca didn't just observe worry as a philosophical problem, he recognized it as a genuine threat to human health. In his letters, he warned that chronic anxiety doesn't merely disturb our peace of mind, it actively destroys our bodies. Modern medical research has proven what this ancient Stoic knew intuitively. Worry is a slow-acting poison that infiltrates every system in our body, breaking down our health from the inside out. Consider what happens in your body when you worry. Your heart races, your muscles tense, your breathing becomes shallow. These aren't just uncomfortable sensations, they're your body's alarm system firing continuously. When you're stuck in traffic, fretting about being late to a meeting, your body releases the same stress hormones it would if you were being chased by a predator. The difference is that our ancestors' stress was acute and temporary. They either escaped the danger or didn't. Our modern worry is chronic, keeping our bodies in a constant state of emergency. Seneca understood this mind-body connection deeply. He wrote to Lucilius, "The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable." But he didn't stop at identifying mental misery. He recognized that this anxiety manifests physically. When we constantly imagine catastrophes, our bodies prepare for them as if they were real. This preparation, meant to be temporary, becomes our default state, wearing down our systems like an engine running at maximum capacity without rest. The Stoics had a profound understanding of what we now call psychosomatic illness. Epictetus taught, "When I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want?" For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their own control, why would they be stricken by anxiety? This insight reveals the mechanism of worry-induced illness. We make ourselves sick by desperately trying to control the uncontrollable. Let's examine a common scenario. Sarah, a marketing manager in Chicago, lies awake at night worrying about her company's upcoming merger. She imagines losing her job, her team being disbanded, her career derailing. Night after night, she tosses and turns, her mind racing through disaster scenarios. Within weeks, she develops chronic insomnia. The lack of sleep weakens her immune system, and she catches every cold that goes around the office. Her digestion suffers, she gets frequent headaches, and her blood pressure rises. Her doctor prescribes medication, but the root cause, her worry, remains untreated. What Sarah doesn't realize is that she's experiencing what Seneca described as suffering more often in imagination than in reality. The merger hasn't happened yet. She might keep her job, get promoted, or find an even better opportunity. But her body doesn't distinguish between imagined threats and real ones. It responds to her catastrophic thinking as if the worst has already occurred. Marcus Aurelius, who faced actual life and death decisions as Roman emperor, wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This wasn't mere philosophical musing, it was practical health advice. When we project our fears into the future, we trigger physiological responses that are meant for immediate threats. Our cortisol levels spike, our inflammatory markers increase, and our immune function decreases. We're essentially poisoning ourselves with our own thoughts. The physical manifestations of chronic worry are extensive and well documented. Digestive issues plague the anxious mind, stomach ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome, and acid reflux often trace back to persistent stress. The cardiovascular system suffers too, with increased risk of hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. Even our skin reflects our inner turmoil through conditions like eczema, psoriasis, and premature aging. Seneca observed these connections, noting how worry etches itself onto our faces and bodies. But perhaps the most insidious effect of worry is on our immune system. When we're constantly anxious, our body diverts resources from long-term health maintenance to immediate survival. This leaves us vulnerable to infections, slows healing, and may even increase cancer risk. Seneca wrote, "It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact." How often has the unexpected happened? By living in fear of potential troubles, we create actual health problems in the present. The Stoics offer a powerful antidote to this self-inflicted suffering. They teach us to focus on what's within our control, our judgments, decisions, and actions, while accepting what isn't. This isn't passive resignation, it's active engagement with reality rather than fearful speculation about possibilities. Consider another example. Marcus, a small business owner in Los Angeles, spent months worrying about the economy's impact on his restaurant. He developed chronic back pain attributed to stress-induced muscle tension. His wife noticed he was irritable, sleeping poorly, and had lost his appetite, ironic for someone in the food business. When he finally learned about Stoic principles, he realized he was making himself sick over factors beyond his control. He couldn't control the economy, but he could control his menu quality, customer service, and business adaptability. Epictetus provides practical guidance. When I see someone in anxiety, I say, "What does this person want?" For if he did not want what is not in his power, how could he be anxious? This diagnostic question helps us identify the source of our worry-induced illness. Are we trying to control other people's opinions? Future outcomes? Past events? Each impossible desire creates physical tension that accumulates into illness. The solution isn't to ignore real challenges or pretend everything is fine. Seneca was no advocate of denial. Instead, he promoted what we might call productive concern, addressing what we can actually influence while releasing our grip on what we cannot. When you catch yourself worrying, ask, "Is this within my power to change?" If yes, take action. If no, practice the Stoic discipline of acceptance. This approach has profound health benefits. When we stop flooding our bodies with stress hormones over imaginary threats, our systems can return to balance. Sleep improves, digestion normalizes, and immunity strengthens. The constant muscle tension releases, chronic pain diminishes, and energy returns. We literally stop poisoning ourselves with our own thoughts. Seneca's warning about worry making us sick wasn't metaphorical, it was a practical health advisory that modern medicine has validated. By understanding this connection and applying Stoic principles, we can break the cycle of worry-induced illness and reclaim our physical vitality. The next section will show you how to transform your past struggles into powerful armor against future worry. 3. How to use your worst moments as worry-proof armor. One of Seneca's most powerful techniques for conquering worry involves a counterintuitive approach. Instead of avoiding thoughts of past difficulties, he encourages us to actively examine them. In his letters to Lucilius, Seneca reminds his friend of a profound truth. Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and deep. By looking deeply at our past struggles, we discover evidence of our own resilience that can armor us against future fears. Think about the worst moment of your life. Perhaps it was a devastating breakup, the loss of a job, a health crisis, or the death of someone you loved. In that moment, it might have felt like your world was ending. You might have thought you'd never recover, never smile again, never find your footing. Yet here you are, reading these words. You survived. You adapted. You continued. This simple fact that you're still here is more powerful than any motivational speech or positive affirmation. Seneca understood that our past struggles are not just painful memories to be suppressed, they're proof of our capacity to endure. He wrote to Lucilius, although many unfortunate things have overcome you, you always stood your ground. This observation isn't meant to minimize past pain, but to highlight an often overlooked truth. We consistently underestimate our ability to handle adversity while overestimating the threat of future challenges. Marcus Aurelius, who faced plagues, wars, and betrayals during his reign, developed a similar practice. He wrote in his Meditations, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Every obstacle he overcame became part of his strength. When we examine our past struggles through the Stoic lens, we transform them from sources of trauma into sources of power. Let me share a practical example. Jennifer, a software engineer in Seattle, was paralyzed by anxiety about an upcoming performance review. She catastrophized endlessly. What if she got fired? What if she couldn't find another job? What if she lost her apartment? Her worry was consuming her life, affecting her sleep and work performance. When introduced to Seneca's technique, she initially resisted. Why would she want to think about past difficulties? But when she finally tried it, something shifted. She remembered being laid off 5 years earlier, how devastating it felt, how certain she was that her career was over. Yet within 2 months, she'd found a better position with higher pay. She recalled her college years, working 3 jobs while studying, sure she'd collapse from exhaustion. She didn't. She graduated with honors. She remembered her parents' divorce when she was 12, certain her family was destroyed forever. But new relationships formed, wounds healed, and life continued. Suddenly, her upcoming review seemed less threatening. She'd faced worse and emerged stronger. This wasn't false confidence, it was evidence-based assurance. As Seneca noted, every adversity is training for greater adversity. Jennifer's past struggles hadn't weakened her, they prepared her for whatever came next. The Stoics understood something profound about human psychology. We suffer more from anticipation than from actual events. Seneca observed this irony repeatedly. Before taking an exam, students torture themselves for weeks with anxiety. During the actual exam, the anxiety is often minimal compared to the anticipatory suffering. Before a difficult conversation, we rehearse disasters for days. The actual conversation? Usually far less terrible than imagined. Epictetus explained this phenomenon. When I see someone in a state of anxiety, I say, what does this person want? For if they did not want something outside their control, why would they be anxious? Our worst moments teach us what's actually within our control and what isn't. When we survived past difficulties, it wasn't because we controlled external events, it was because we adapted our responses. Consider David, a restaurant owner in Miami who spent months dreading his business's slow season. He remembered the previous year's struggle, empty tables, worried staff, mounting bills. But when he examined that experience more closely using Stoic principles, he realized something crucial. Yes, revenue had dropped, but he'd responded creatively, introducing new menu items, hosting special events, negotiating with suppliers. The slow season hadn't destroyed him, it had made him a better businessman. This realization transformed his approach to the upcoming slow season. Instead of weeks of dread, he felt prepared. He had evidence of his ability to adapt. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. David's past struggle became his strategic advantage. The practice of examining past resilience also reveals patterns in our worry. Most of us have recurring fears that never materialize. Seneca pointed this out to Lucilius. How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass? When we inventory our past worries against actual outcomes, we often discover that 90% of our fears never materialized and the 10% that did were manageable. This doesn't mean we should be reckless or unprepared. Seneca wasn't advocating for blind optimism. Rather, he promoted what we might call evidence-based confidence. When you've survived job loss, you know you can survive it again. When you've recovered from heartbreak, you know hearts can heal. When you've rebuilt after failure, you know you possess that capacity. The technique is simple but powerful. When worry strikes, pause and ask yourself, what past difficulty have I overcome that was similar to or worse than this? Then examine that experience carefully. How did you survive? What strengths emerged? What resources appeared? What lessons did you learn? This isn't positive thinking, it's a factual analysis of your proven capabilities. Some might object, but what if this time is different? What if this challenge is truly beyond my capacity? Seneca addresses this too. He reminds us that humans are remarkably adaptable creatures. Throughout history, people have survived circumstances far worse than most of us will ever face. If they could endure slavery, war, plague, and persecution while maintaining their humanity, we can handle our modern challenges. Moreover, building this worry-proof armor from past struggles creates a positive cycle. Each time we face a fear and survive, we add another piece of evidence to our resilience portfolio. Each challenge overcome becomes ammunition against future anxiety. We stop seeing ourselves as fragile victims of circumstance and start recognizing ourselves as experienced survivors. The power of this approach lies in its grounding in personal truth. You're not trying to convince yourself of something false. You're simply remembering what's true. You've survived every difficult day of your life so far. That's a 100% success rate. As Seneca wisely concluded, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Your worst moments, properly understood, become your greatest teachers and protectors against future worry. 4. Seneca's simple test to stop imaginary problems. In one of his most practical letters to Lucilius, Seneca provides a diagnostic tool so simple yet so effective that it can instantly reveal whether your worries are based in reality or pure imagination. He writes, "You may retort with the question, how am I to know whether my sufferings are real or imaginary? Here is the rule for such matters. We are tormented either by things present, or by things to come, or by both." This seemingly straightforward test contains profound wisdom that can liberate us from the majority of our mental suffering. The test works like this. When worry strikes, pause and ask yourself, is this problem actually happening right now, at this very moment? If the answer is no, you've just identified an imaginary problem. If the answer is yes, you can take immediate action. Most people never perform this simple check, allowing their minds to blur the distinction between present reality and future possibility. Let's see how this works in practice. Rachel, a project manager in Boston, finds herself consumed with anxiety on a Sunday evening. Her mind races. The client will hate our presentation. My team will blame me for not preparing them better. I'll lose credibility with my boss. This could derail my entire career. Using Seneca's test, She asks, "What is actually happening right now?" The answer: she's sitting on her couch, physically safe, with a completed presentation on her laptop. The client hasn't seen it yet. No criticism has occurred. Her career remains intact. Every single worry is about imaginary future events. Seneca continues his instruction. Suppose that your person enjoys freedom and health, and that you do not suffer from any external injury. As to what may happen to it in the future, we shall see later on. Today, there is nothing wrong with it. This isn't denial or avoidance. It's precise thinking. By clearly distinguishing between present facts and future fantasies, we can address real problems while dismissing imaginary ones. The power of this test becomes even clearer when we examine how our minds create elaborate fictional scenarios. Marcus Aurelius understood this tendency, writing, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." When we fail to ground ourselves in present reality, our imagination runs wild, creating problems that exist nowhere except in our thoughts. Consider Tom, a sales executive in Denver, who receives a vague email from his biggest client. "We need to talk about the contract renewal." Immediately, his mind constructs a disaster narrative. He imagines the client canceling, his commission disappearing, his mortgage payments becoming impossible. He spends the entire weekend in misery, snapping at his family, unable to sleep. When Monday arrives and he calls the client, he discovers they simply want to increase their order. He suffered for 3 days over an imaginary problem that Seneca's test would have instantly revealed. Epictetus reinforces this principle with his teaching about impressions. Don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, "Hold on a moment. Let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test." This is precisely what Seneca's diagnostic tool does. It tests whether our suffering has any basis in current reality. The test becomes even more valuable when we understand how our minds transform neutral events into catastrophes. Seneca observed, "The mind twists into the worst construction some word of doubtful meaning, or it fancies some personal grudge to be more serious than it really is, considering not how angry the enemy is, but to what lengths he may go if he is angry." This tendency to catastrophize makes Seneca's reality check essential. Here's another example. Lisa, a teacher in Phoenix, notices her principal observing her class. Her mind immediately spirals. She's documenting problems. "I'm going to be put on a performance plan. They want to fire me." Using Seneca's test, what's actually happening? A principal is observing a class, a routine part of the job. No criticism has been voiced. No performance plan exists. The firing is pure fiction. Later, Lisa learns the principal was simply conducting routine observations for the district report. The beauty of Seneca's test lies in its immediate applicability. You don't need years of philosophical training or meditation practice. At any moment of worry, you can ask, "Is this actually happening right now?" The question cuts through mental fog like a sword through smoke. It forces us to confront the fact that most of our suffering comes from fighting ghosts. Seneca provides additional guidance for applying this test. As to things present, the decision is easy. When something is actually happening, your car has broken down, you've received a diagnosis, you've lost your job, you can take concrete action. Call a mechanic. Consult with doctors. Update your resume. Real problems have real solutions. Imaginary problems only have imaginary solutions, which is why we can never resolve them through worry. The test also reveals patterns in our thinking. Most chronic worriers discover they rarely have present moment problems. Their suffering almost exclusively comes from future projections or past ruminations. Sarah, a graphic designer in Portland, kept a worry journal for a week, applying Seneca's test each time anxiety arose. She discovered that 95% of her worries were about events that hadn't happened. Only 5% concerned with actual present moment challenges, and those she could address directly. Marcus Aurelius adds another dimension to this practice. Confine yourself to the present. This isn't just philosophical advice. It's practical mental hygiene. When we strictly limit our attention to present reality, imaginary problems lose their power to torment us. They simply cannot survive the bright light of present moment awareness. Some might argue, but shouldn't we prepare for future problems? Seneca distinguishes between prudent preparation and anxious worry. Planning based on present facts is wise. Suffering over imagined scenarios is foolish. You can prepare for tomorrow's presentation without torturing yourself about imaginary disasters. You can save for retirement without living in fear of poverty. The test helps maintain this crucial distinction. The Stoics understood that our minds are prediction machines, constantly generating scenarios to help us survive. But in our safe, modern world, this ancient survival mechanism often creates more problems than it solves. Seneca's test is like a filter that separates useful information from harmful fiction. It allows us to maintain vigilance against real threats while dismissing imaginary ones. Implementing this test requires practice but yields immediate results. Each time worry arises, pause and apply the diagnostic. Is this problem actually present right now? If yes, take action. If no, recognize it as imagination and return your attention to the present reality. This isn't about becoming passive or careless. It's about directing your energy toward real challenges rather than shadowboxing with phantoms. As Seneca concludes, we are tormented either by things present, or by things to come, or by both. His simple test reveals that most of us are rarely tormented by things present. We suffer primarily from our imagination's dark creativity. By consistently applying this diagnostic tool, we can free ourselves from imaginary problems and focus our energy on what's real, present, and actionable. 5. Why you need to fire your worry committee. Seneca recognized a troubling pattern in Roman society that remains remarkably relevant today. We often absorb other people's fears and anxieties as if they were our own. In his letters, he urgently warns Lucilius to be careful about outside influences when assessing his personal situation. This wasn't casual advice, it was a crucial strategy for mental freedom. The worry committee consists of all those voices, both external and internal, that amplify our fears and plant seeds of anxiety that would never have grown in the soil of our own experience. Think about how many of your current worries originated from someone else's fear. Your mother warns you about job security, and suddenly you're anxious about a position you felt confident in yesterday. A friend shares horror stories about relationships and you begin doubting your happy partnership. A news headline predicts economic doom and you lose sleep over finances that were stable moments before. As Seneca observed, we're remarkably susceptible to converting what is not an evil into what is an evil simply because someone else suggested it might be so. The Stoics understood that humans are social creatures who naturally absorb the emotions and beliefs of those around us. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in Rome, had to constantly guard against this tendency. He wrote how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only what he does himself. This isn't about becoming antisocial, it's about maintaining sovereignty over your own mind. Consider Jessica, a successful entrepreneur in San Francisco who built a thriving online business. At a family gathering, her uncle launches into a lecture about how online businesses always fail and shares stories of people who lost everything. Her aunt chimes in with warnings about the economy. Her cousin mentions a friend who got sued by a customer. By the end of dinner, Jessica, who arrived confident and happy, leaves filled with anxiety about problems she'd never considered. She's allowed her relatives to form an impromptu worry committee that's now governing her mental state. Seneca's advice is direct. It is better to trust in yourself and take counsel with your own feelings, as you know your affairs better than anyone else does. This isn't arrogance, it's recognition of a simple truth. No one else lives inside your life. They don't know your capabilities, your resources, your resilience, or the full context of your situation. Yet we often grant them voting rights, sometimes majority control, over our peace of mind. The worry committee extends beyond family and friends to include media voices, social media influencers, and even random strangers. Each member of this committee has their own fears, biases, and limited perspectives, yet we allow them to shape our reality. Epictetus addressed this directly. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." This response reveals the Stoic understanding that others' opinions, including their worries about us, reflect their own mental state more than our reality. Here's what makes the worry committee particularly dangerous. Its members often present their fears as care and concern. "I'm only saying this because I love you," they claim, while installing their anxieties directly into your mental operating system. Your coworker who constantly warns about layoffs isn't helping you. They're spreading their own job insecurity. Your friend who sees danger everywhere isn't protecting you. They're recruiting you into their fearful worldview. Let me share another example. Robert, a financial advisor in Houston, made a solid investment decision based on careful research. He felt confident until he made the mistake of sharing his plan with his golf buddies. One had lost money in a vaguely similar investment 20 years ago. Another quoted a pessimistic article he'd skimmed. A third shared his brother-in-law's opinion, though the brother-in-law had no financial expertise. By the ninth hole, Robert was convinced he'd made a terrible mistake. He sold the investment at a loss, only to watch it triple in value over the next year. The worry committee had overruled his own sound judgment. Seneca provides the antidote: consult reason to see if you don't convert what is not an evil into what is an evil. This means developing a practice of independent evaluation. When someone shares a fear or warning, don't automatically accept it. Instead, examine it rationally. Is this person qualified to assess this situation? Are they speaking from direct experience or secondhand stories? Do they have a pattern of catastrophic thinking? Most importantly, does their concern align with your actual experience? The process of firing your worry committee requires both courage and method. Start by identifying the most vocal members. Who in your life consistently amplifies your fears? Who always has a dire warning or pessimistic prediction? These people might love you, but their membership on your mental board of directors needs to be revoked. This doesn't mean cutting them from your life, it means no longer granting them authority over your peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius developed a powerful practice for this. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. This paradox reveals why we need to consciously reclaim our mental autonomy. You are the only expert on your life. You have access to information others don't. You know your past victories, your hidden strengths, your capacity for adaptation. The digital age has exponentially expanded our worry committees. Social media algorithms feed us worst-case scenarios because fear drives engagement. News outlets amplify rare disasters because they capture attention. Online forums create echo chambers where anxious people reinforce each other's fears. Sarah, a nurse in Atlanta, realized her anxiety spiked every time she scrolled through her phone. She was allowing thousands of strangers to serve on her worry committee. When she limited her media consumption and unfollowed fear-mongering accounts, her anxiety decreased dramatically. Firing your worry committee doesn't mean ignoring all advice or living in denial. Seneca valued wise counsel from qualified sources. The key is distinguishing between helpful information and contagious anxiety. A doctor's medical advice deserves consideration. Your hypochondriac neighbor's medical opinions don't. A financial advisor's market analysis might be valuable. Your pessimistic uncle's economic predictions aren't. The Stoics teach us to build what Marcus Aurelius called an inner citadel, a fortress of rational thought that external fears cannot penetrate. This requires consistent practice. When someone shares a worry, pause before accepting it. Ask yourself, is this actually my problem, or am I borrowing trouble? When you catch yourself spiraling into anxiety, trace it back. Did this fear originate from my own experience, or did someone else plant it? Remember Seneca's observation that we're easily affected by narrow-minded and even delusional views of reality from others who gladly plant their seeds of fear in our minds. Your peace of mind is too precious to be governed by a committee. It's time to reclaim your mental sovereignty, trust your own judgment, and stop allowing other people's fears to become your reality. As you'll discover in the next section, even when genuine challenges arise, they often contain hidden opportunities that worry committees never recognize. 6. The ancient secret that turns bad luck into good. Seneca possessed a remarkable understanding of fortune's dual nature that modern minds often miss. In his letters, he reveals a profound truth: even bad fortune is fickle. This isn't wishful thinking or empty optimism, it's a sophisticated understanding of how reality actually unfolds. The Stoics discovered that what appears to be misfortune often contains the seeds of unexpected benefit, and those who understand this secret can transform life's inevitable setbacks into advantages. The Roman goddess Fortuna was depicted holding a wheel, constantly turning, raising some while lowering others. But Seneca saw beyond this simple image. He recognized that fortune doesn't just alternate between good and bad, it often disguises one as the other. What seems like a disaster today might be salvation tomorrow. What appears to be luck might carry hidden danger. This isn't mysticism, it's pattern recognition based on careful observation of life's complexities. Marcus Aurelius, who faced more genuine misfortune than most plagues, wars, betrayals, the death of children, developed this principle into an art form. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This wasn't philosophical abstraction for him. When the Antonine Plague devastated Rome, it forced reforms in public health. When Germanic tribes invaded, it revealed weaknesses in Roman defenses that, once corrected, strengthened the empire. Every setback became a setup for improvement. Let me illustrate with a modern example. Daniel, a software developer in Austin, was devastated when his startup failed after 3 years of exhausting work. His savings were depleted, his confidence shattered. It seemed like pure misfortune. But the failure forced him to take a corporate job he would have previously scorned. There, he met his future business partner, learned enterprise-level skills his startup experience lacked, and built the network that would make his next venture successful. 5 years later, he recognized the failure as the best thing that could have happened. As Seneca noted, every new state of fortune affects either our person or our possessions. A wise man is prepared for either. This principle operates constantly in ways we rarely recognize. Consider Lisa, a marketing director in Seattle who was passed over for a promotion she'd worked toward for 2 years. She felt crushed, interpreting it as career failure. The position went to an external candidate who, within 6 months, was terminated for ethical violations. The resulting scandal tainted everyone associated with that role. Lisa, meanwhile, was headhunted by a competitor who'd noticed her excellent work. She ended up with a better position at higher pay. What seemed like bad fortune was actually fortune protecting her from a disaster she couldn't have foreseen. Seneca urges us to maintain what he calls open-mindedness about fortune's gifts, looking at our human ignorance not only about what will happen and how these events will play out, but also concerning the nature of these events and how they exactly affect our lives. It's better to be careful when judging fate. This isn't passive acceptance, it's active recognition that we lack the perspective to judge events accurately in the moment. The Stoics developed specific practices for this transformation. When apparent misfortune strikes, they ask, what opportunities does this create? What lessons does it teach? What strengths will it develop? This reframing isn't a denial of difficulty, it's a recognition of complexity. Epictetus taught, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things. By suspending hasty judgment about whether something is truly good or bad fortune, we remain open to unexpected developments. History provides countless examples. Alexander Fleming's misfortune of having his bacterial cultures contaminated led to the discovery of penicillin. Steve Jobs being fired from Apple seemed catastrophic, but led to his founding Next and acquiring Pixar, experiences that prepared him to save Apple upon his return. The Great Fire of London in 1666 appeared purely destructive, but enabled the rebuilding of a more sanitary city that reduced plague outbreaks. In personal life, this principle operates constantly. Rachel, a teacher in Phoenix, discovered her husband's affair, seemingly pure misfortune. The divorce was painful, but it freed her from a relationship that had been subtly diminishing her for years. She rediscovered interests he'd mocked, pursued a graduate degree he'd discouraged, and eventually found a partner who supported her growth. Years later, she could honestly say the betrayal, while painful, had redirected her life toward greater fulfillment. Seneca emphasizes that this isn't about pretending bad things are good. Let us, then, look carefully into the matter. It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact. How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass? He's teaching us to hold our interpretations lightly, knowing that time often reveals dimensions we couldn't initially see. The ancient secret isn't that everything happens for a reason or that the universe conspires to help us. It's that fortune is genuinely fickle, unpredictable in both directions. The same force that brings apparent misfortune can suddenly shift, revealing unexpected benefits. The key is maintaining what Seneca calls philosophical flexibility, the ability to adapt our perspective as situations evolve. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing, accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. This acceptance isn't resignation, it's recognition that fighting fortune's fickleness wastes energy better spent adapting to and benefiting from whatever comes. Consider how this applies to common fears. Job loss seems purely negative until it pushes you toward a more fulfilling career. Illness appears entirely destructive until it teaches you to value health and time. Relationship endings feel like failure until they free you to find better matches. Financial setbacks seem catastrophic until they teach lessons that create lasting prosperity. The secret is patience, allowing fortune's full pattern to emerge before judging. This Stoic wisdom offers profound comfort. If even bad fortune is fickle, then our worst moments carry hidden potential. We need not despair when difficulty strikes because fortune's wheel continues turning. What seems like the end might be the beginning. What appears as loss might be redirection toward gain. By understanding fortune's dual nature, we can maintain hope during hardship and caution during success, knowing that both states are temporary and often misleading. 7. Your daily 5-minute Stoic ritual for permanent peace. Seneca understood that philosophy without practice is merely intellectual entertainment. In his letters to Lucilius, he emphasizes the importance of daily discipline. Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and deep. The ancient Stoics didn't just think about wisdom, they lived it through specific daily practices. Now, after exploring Seneca's principles for conquering worry, it's time to integrate them into a simple ritual that takes just 5 minutes but can transform your entire relationship with stress. This ritual combines all 7 strategies we've explored into a morning practice that builds what Seneca calls a fortified mind. Marcus Aurelius performed a similar practice each dawn, writing in his meditations before the demands of empire consumed his day. Epictetus taught his students comparable exercises, knowing that wisdom without application remains powerless against worry's assault. Here's your complete 5-minute morning ritual for permanent peace. Minute 1. The reality check. Begin by sitting quietly and applying Seneca's diagnostic test. Ask yourself, what am I worried about right now? List your current anxieties mentally. Then apply the test. Is this actually happening at this moment? You'll likely discover that 90% of your worries are about imaginary future events. For each imaginary worry, simply note, not real, not now. This immediate reality check, as Seneca taught, separates actual challenges requiring action from fictional problems requiring dismissal. Minute 2. The resilience review. Shift your attention to past victories. Choose one worry from your list and ask, when have I faced something similar or worse? Recall specific details. How did you survive? What strengths emerged? What resources appeared? As Seneca reminded Lucilius, although many unfortunate things have overcome you, you always stood your ground. This isn't positive thinking, it's evidence gathering. You're building what we might call a resilience database that proves your capability to handle whatever comes. Minute 3. The committee audit now. Examine your worries' origins. For each concern, ask, is this my genuine fear, or did someone else plant it? Identify whose voices echo in your anxiety: pessimistic relatives, fearful friends, and dramatic media. As Seneca advised, be careful about outside influences. Mentally revoke their membership from your worry committee. Replace their voices with your own rational assessment. If you're worried about job security, is it because of actual performance issues or because your anxious colleague constantly predicts layoffs? Minute 4. The fortune reframe. Take your most pressing concern and apply the ancient secret of fortune's fickleness. Ask, how might this apparent problem contain a hidden opportunity? This isn't toxic positivity, it's pattern recognition. If you're facing a challenge, consider how it might strengthen you, redirect you, or protect you from something worse. Remember Seneca's wisdom, even bad fortune is fickle. Write down one possible positive outcome, however unlikely it seems. This trains your mind to see beyond initial appearances. Minute 5. The Stoic commitment. Conclude by setting your intention for the day using Marcus Aurelius's morning reflection. Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. But I will not be surprised or disturbed, for I cannot imagine a world without such people. Adapt this to your situation. Today I may face challenges, but I have conquered worse. I will focus on what I control, dismiss imaginary problems, trust my own judgment, and remain open to fortune's hidden gifts. This ritual works because it addresses worry at its roots. By starting each day with this practice, you build mental habits that automatically counter anxiety throughout your day. When worry arises at 2 p.m., your morning reality check has already trained you to ask, is this real or imaginary? When someone tries to transfer their fears to you, your committee audit has prepared you to maintain boundaries. Let me share how this transforms daily life. Michael, a financial analyst in Chicago, started this practice during a particularly stressful merger. His morning ritual revealed that most of his anxiety came from imaginary scenarios and his pessimistic boss's projections. The Resilience Review reminded him he'd survived 2 previous mergers. The Fortune reframe helped him see how the uncertainty might lead to new opportunities. Within weeks, his chronic insomnia improved. When the merger was completed, he was promoted to lead the integration team, a possibility he couldn't have imagined while lost in worry. The power lies in consistency. Seneca emphasized that philosophical practice must be daily. Nothing great is created suddenly. Each morning's 5 minutes builds upon the previous day's foundation. After a month, the practice becomes automatic. After 3 months, it fundamentally rewires your response to stress. You'll find yourself naturally applying these principles throughout your day without conscious effort. Some mornings, the ritual might reveal genuine present-moment challenges requiring action. Perfect. As Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. The ritual doesn't eliminate real problems, it clarifies them. When you strip away imaginary worries, borrowed fears, and hasty judgments about fortune, you're left with clear action items you can actually address. The ritual also evolves with practice. Initially, you might struggle to recall past resilience or see potential good in difficulties. That's normal. Seneca himself acknowledged the challenge. It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. But each day's practice makes the next easier. Your resilience database grows. Your ability to spot others' fears sharpens. Your skill at reframing fortune improves. Remember, this isn't about achieving a worry-free existence. That's neither possible nor desirable. As Seneca noted, appropriate concern keeps us safe and motivated. The goal is conquering the kind of chronic, imaginary worry that poisons daily life. This ritual builds what the Stoics called ataraxia, a state of serene confidence based on wisdom rather than circumstance. The beauty of this 5-minute investment is its compound effect. Each morning's practice doesn't just address that day's worries, it builds permanent mental infrastructure. You're not just managing stress, you're developing what Marcus Aurelius called an inner citadel that external events cannot breach. This is how Seneca conquered worry forever, maintaining tranquility while navigating exile, political intrigue, and constant danger. If it worked for him under such extreme conditions, imagine what it can do for your modern challenges. Start your stress-free life today. As we wrap up this exploration of Seneca's timeless wisdom, it's essential to reflect on the powerful tools you now possess to conquer worry and cultivate a stress-free life. The Stoics teach that while we cannot control external events, we can control our responses and interpretations. This foundational principle is your greatest ally in navigating the complexities of modern life. You've learned to distinguish between real and imaginary problems with Seneca's simple test. By asking, is this actually happening right now? You've empowered yourself to dismiss unnecessary worries. This practice alone can liberate you from the mental shackles that bind so many to chronic anxiety. As Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Incorporating resilience reviews into your daily routine allows you to draw upon past experiences, reinforcing your confidence and capability. Remember Rachel, who transformed her worries about an impending presentation into a moment of empowerment by recalling her past successes. Every challenge you've faced has equipped you with the tools to confront future difficulties. Seneca reminds us, every adversity is training for greater adversity. It's crucial to recognize that firing your worry committee is about reclaiming your mental sovereignty. By consciously filtering external influences, you can focus on what truly matters, your values, judgments, and experiences. This practice aligns with the Stoic belief in self-reliance. As Seneca advised, it is better to trust in yourself and take counsel with your own feelings, as you know your affairs better than anyone else does. The ancient secret of transforming apparent misfortune into good fortune offers a profound perspective shift. When faced with challenges, consider how they may lead to unexpected opportunities. Much like Daniel, who found new partnerships after his startup failed, you too can uncover hidden benefits in your struggles. Remember, even bad fortune is fickle, as Seneca stated. This understanding encourages a mindset that remains open to the possibilities inherent in every situation. Finally, your daily 5-minute Stoic ritual is your path to permanent peace. By committing just a short time each morning to this practice, you build a fortified mind capable of facing the uncertainties of life with equanimity. Over time, this ritual will cultivate ataraxia, a serene confidence that allows you to navigate the world without being overwhelmed by worry. As you conclude this journey through Seneca's teachings, I encourage you to start implementing these strategies today. Reflect on your habits, challenge your fears, and embrace the Stoic wisdom that ensures you are the master of your thoughts, not their servant. Each moment you choose to apply these lessons is a step toward a more peaceful existence. In the words of Seneca, begin at once to live and count each day as a separate life. Take that first step today and watch as your worries diminish, giving way to a life filled with clarity, purpose, and resilience. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the Stoic Viva channel for more insights into applying Stoic philosophy to modern life. Like and share this content with others who might benefit from these teachings. Remember, the path to a stress-free life begins with you.